time. Working forever is Tom and Sue's fate, so choose to save now before it's too late. Visit our website to find out more, because a happy ending's worth saving for.
And welcome back to Speak Out with our guest, Art Halvorson for Congress. And Art, I wanted to just briefly revisit the farm subsidy issue. And again, those commercials have through factcheck.org are not true.
Right.
And I just wanted to ask you, has Congressman Schuster voted for any farm subsidies?
He absolutely has. He's voted. He voted for the most recent farm bill that passed, that included the subsidies that he was saying that I had received, which I had not received. Also, he voted last fall when we were working very hard to get the food stamps removed from because that's 80% of the farm bill is food stamps. We tried to bring some sanity to that process by removing the food stamp portion of it. And in a 15-minute period, Mr. Schuster voted for and against. He voted both ways on that particular action. So either he doesn't know what he believes, or he wants to have it both ways.
Yeah, right. And going on to our next topic, are you pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment?
I'm pro-gun. As a 29-year military veteran, of course, I spent my first career as a gun user and a weapons holder. I also have, now as a civilian, my concealed weapons permit. My wife has a concealed weapons permit. We have really a hunting preserve on our farm. It's mostly timber, and so we bring Marines up from Quantico. In some cases, we have Amish folks that visit us from Lancaster. Lots of folks come up and hunt on our land. And the Second Amendment, I believe, is strategically placed in the Bill of Rights to protect the First Amendment, and I think it speaks highly of the understanding of the founders that gun rights were integral to the survival of our nation.
Sure. And what are your thoughts on Fort Hood from
Well,
yesterday?
I'm grieved by that. Obviously, it's a tragedy to happen twice in the same location. Our first thoughts have to go to the family members and the members themselves that have been affected by this action. I want to focus on one aspect of it. The commanding officer of that Fort Hood has come out and said he does not support carrying concealed weapons by military members. I think that's ridiculous. These are trained professionals who practice with their weapons, maybe not every day, but on a regular basis, a training schedule for their weapons to prepare to go to war, and having come back from war, they're carrying their weapons, and yet on a military base, they're not allowed to carry legal concealed weapons. Well, guys like this shooter carried them. Why can't folks carry them legally, registered, with the base commander that they're carrying a concealed weapon? That probably would have saved a lot of lives, and I think it doesn't make any sense that the commanding officers come out with that policy statement.
Do you feel that political correctness has come into play?
I do. More than political correctness, I believe it's probably orders from above.
That's unfortunate. What are your thoughts on the atmosphere in Washington these days in regards to leadership, how we're seen in the world,
right,
and even internally?
Right. Well, there's an absence of leadership in Washington. Washington has become a place where K Street, which is where the lobbyists largely reside and operate from, and I'm not going to say they own Washington, but they come close to it, because for $5,200 that's the maximum contribution, which now I think the Supreme Court is saying that there is no maximum. I don't know the details of that final decision they just came out with, but the influence of money on incumbent politicians is so pervasive that you have a situation like ours here, where Mr. Schuster literally has unlimited funds through super PACs and other fundraising techniques largely from industry that is being legislated by his committee, receiving legislation and regulations from his committee. So they're literally buying influence by their contribution to him from highways, construction, unions, airlines, railroads, go down the entire list of the transportation industry, and they're allowed to influence it's indirect, but it's direct, and I'm saying that it's clear what's going on there. And once it's signaled that he's going to respond to that kind and receive that kind of largesse, then we know that it's common sense tells you it's going to influence him and the legislation that he supports.
Any comment on his brother as a lobbyist?
Yeah, that's just unacceptable. And they're skirting around rules. There's lots of rules being broken, frankly, and laws being broken, but it's easy to skirt around them because Congress writes the rules, many of which they exempt themselves from, and others they write in such a way that they know how to get around them. So it's a game, in a sense. It's a big game where they're making us believe that there's serious players up there. To get back to my first point, the absence of leadership is that people just play games like little kids, and that's what I see going on. We need to send adults up there. We need to send military veterans. We need to send people who sign the front of checks, not just the back, who have experience balancing budgets and payrolls, and who can go up there for the right reasons, self-term limit themselves, not go up there for a career and stay forever, pad their nest. We've got the wrong people up there. Career politicians are killing us.
Do you believe in term limits?
I believe in self-imposed term limits. I will be Bill Schuster's term limit. The Constitution has been tested and found that term limits are not constitutional. I regret to have to say that, other than that's what was decided, that every 2 years was deemed sufficient to hold members accountable. Well, we found now that it has not. It would actually require a constitutional amendment to make term limits legal, and I've not made a final decision whether I would support that or not. Having just gone through this process, I can see the benefit of having not have to oppose somebody who's been up there, in his case now, for almost 13 years of his 14-year term.
Do you believe in a balanced budget amendment?
The principle that I operate under is we don't mess with the Constitution. But the reality is coming home that we don't have, unless we can do something this time, I don't know that we're going to have the will as a people to elect folks who will be serious about balancing the budget. So if I get elected, I would be encouraged that people see that they need to change who's up there and send somebody else who's committed to balancing the budget. If I'm defeated, it would tell me that the American people are going to continue to go with the incumbent, in which case I would say probably a constitutional amendment would be required.
If you are elected, what would be your first priority?
To replace Mr. Boehner. Goes to the leadership issue. Mr. Boehner is not a leader, and he has failed in his job. He knows that he's the third most powerful man constitutionally in succession, and as keeper of the purse, Madison considered it the most powerful. And so Mr. Boehner, probably realizing that, is part of the establishment. He's not going to make any waves. He's had plenty of opportunities to do that, and he's not conservative.
What is your opinion on immigration policy in this country? What would you support?
I support protecting the borders and enforcing existing law. We have plenty of laws in place. If we were to enforce them and we actually were to deport people, even the criminals, we find out now that only about half or maybe less are actually deported. Illegal immigrant criminals are being held and released in our. It's unconscionable what's going on. So we don't need changes in immigration law. We need enforcement, and so we need to change the leaders who are allowing this to go on and be operated this way. And I'm very concerned that after this election and this primary on May 20th, we're going to see our own Republican Party embrace amnesty. I think they're going to. Mr. Boehner again, Mr. Schuster, he says he's out against it, but he says he's against a lot of things, and then when push comes to shove, he does the unconservative thing. Okay.
And how about energy policy in this country, the Keystone Pipeline?
Right. We could have energy independence in this country. We need the Keystone Pipeline. We need deep water offshore drilling. The BP oil spill was overhyped by folks with an agenda. Holding those leases and those leasing tracts of land for deep water drilling off the auction table is hurting us. We are paying in my part of town, $3.70 for a gallon of gas, and we should be paying well under $3. And we could achieve that if we were to unleash our energy industry.
And why are you the best candidate, Art?
I'm the best candidate because I act on principle, and I have for my entire life. I think I have something to show for it. My military career, I was tested time after time on dark and stormy nights whether I could complete the mission or not and bring my crew back alive. I did. I have started and have successfully operated a very successful small business. I know how business runs. I know how to make money. I know how the economy works, and I would apply that to legislation that would enable us to get our economy back on track. Much of what is necessary, though, is to just reduce the size and the scope and the intrusion of the federal government. The taxes. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. It's tied for the highest, 29%. It drives companies to keep any money earned overseas. So there's over $2 trillion that could and should be invested in this country that will not be brought in because it's such a confiscatory tax rate.
And I understand you have an upcoming event here on April the 8th here in Hollidaysburg, is that correct?
We do. On Allegheny Avenue, we have a meet and greet from 7 to 8.
Good.
Right across the street from the library.
Very good. And you have a web address for people who want more information?
It's simply Art Halvorson for Congress. World Wide Web, arthalvorsonforcongress.com.
Alrighty, and on that note, we thank you so much for joining the program, and we'll take another commercial break, and we'll be right back with Aaron Ritchie. Thank you.
Or if your audio doesn't sound perfect, or if you're not the world's greatest camera person, we just want to see what you want us to see, and to know what you would like us to know. Your local public access television station has tools and resources to make this possible, so that we can see what you see. It's the freedom to communicate, and it's only on cable.
Behind the wheel, there is no such thing as a small distraction. A public service reminder from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, who would rather help keep your bones strong than put them back together. Speak out against distracted driving at decidetodrive.org.
And welcome back to Speak Out. And on our second half hour, we have Aaron Ritchie running for the Pennsylvania House, District 80, currently occupied by the outgoing Jerry Stern. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jerry for all of his hard work over the years, and we wish him the best of luck. And Aaron, why don't you take an opportunity to introduce yourself to the public and why you're running?
Well, I've been a lifetime resident of Hollidaysburg School District, lifetime resident of Blair County. I have been a longtime businessman in the area, and it was approximately 7 or 8 years ago I was asked by a member of the community if I would be interested in running for the Hollidaysburg Area School District for the school board, and I thought, well, I don't know that I'm very politically correct, and I really wasn't sure how much of a consensus builder I could be, and I actually declined that the first time. And the next term, that individual and other individuals asked me if I would be interested in serving on that board, so I chose to go ahead and do that. And actually at that time, I always thought we were being led by the best and brightest. Well, I kind of found out that we were probably being led by maybe the most apathetic and sometimes self-serving, and I'm not really sure that the intent that was necessary to be a school board director was really in place. So that was one of the things that really initiated my passion to go ahead and move into some of the political realm. A lot of people probably don't a lot of people probably are not aware of this, but the school districts are actually the largest taxing bodies in the area, and they probably have more impact on your day-to-day life than any other government entity. I know that the Hollidaysburg School District is the third largest employer in the county with a $44 million budget. So I give a lot of credit to those people that actually are willing to serve. If you want to talk about consensus building, not only do you have to make the voter happy, the taxpayer happy, the parents of the students happy, the union groups that work in the district, the teachers, the administration, but 8 other board members happy.
Mission impossible.
Well, to bring all those people together and actually implement change can be quite a task. But I found that if you are knowledgeable of the subjects, that you are sincere in your negotiations, and people can trust you, those things come.
And so what are your main priorities here if you were to win the seat?
Well, certainly energy is huge. When I started in my construction business, some of the first projects were construction of coal facilities. And back in the early 80s, there was a tremendous amount of coal production in Pennsylvania.